Welcome back to the Smugsy Show. I'm Smugsy, your host. Happy to be back here for another pop-up Wednesday show. This week, two things. One, my first impression of the case, Season 2, the investigative podcast by Kirk Minihane and Barstool Sports. Season 2 about the death of Sandra Birchmore, the Canton Woods apartment complex in Massachusetts. The podcast implicates former Stoughton police officers. Pretty interesting. The problem, of course, is the most sympathetic person who's not a person is the dog, Harlow. And the question I have is, what happened to Harlow? Kirk Minihane, once again, is bravely exploring a death that has been ignored by society, and the reason why it's been ignored is because sluts' lives don't matter, is what it boils down to. Women who have had tragedy and therefore become promiscuous, sleep around, they get no respect. When there's a crime committed against them, it's believed that they're of lesser value. That's what we see in the case. Sandra Birchmore was preyed on by a lot of men. One of them being Joshua Heel, the animal control officer who traded a stray cat for a blowjob from Sandra Birchmore. Interesting facts, compelling facts, but it makes me care about this guy's dog, Harlow, who apparently had to be retrained completely after Heel, this creeper, who traded the cat for a blowjob as the animal control officer. His police dog had to be completely retrained after he lost his job, and that concerns me. That concerns me a lot, and I hope that Season 3 of the Case podcast gets down to the brass tacks about what happened to Harlow. The big lessons, I think, the overarching message of the case is that A, don't be a slut, and B, stick with the dogs. Okay, you gotta stick with the dogs. From a criminal justice standpoint, though, this is interesting. There's a lot of talk about trans this, trans that. I mean, you see it every day, everywhere you go. It's a conversation about trans. And I think people who follow the show know that I have a philosophy, not just about trans, but about life. And my philosophy about life informs my opinions about trans, and I'm going to share them with you because I care about vulnerable populations who might be hurting themselves or thinking about hurting themselves because they have a mismatch between what their mind and what their body is. The fundamental building block of my beliefs about trans and about everything else is that essentially your body is your temple. Those are my values. That's what I believe. Your body is your temple. So now you think vegans, okay? Holier than thou vegans, they abstain from eating animals or using animal products. Good for them. I'm not a vegan, but I don't eat a lot of red meat. I'm a Mediterranean diet kind of girl. Garlic, olive oil, cheese, fish, lots of pasta, more garlic, more olive oil, vegetables, nuts, red wine, crusty bread. If you're a vegan and you abstain from animal and animal products, that's fine. If you're trans and you want to abstain from surgery and hormone products, drugs, that's where I am. I'm of the belief that if you're trans, if you have gender dysphoria, if you are distressed because of a mismatch between your personality and your mind and what your body reflects, that you should consider a vegan form of trans, and that is non-surgical, non-hormonal, because I don't trust the medical establishment. That's the bottom line, is I don't believe that surgery and drugs is the answer to a dichotomy between the mind and the body. Because if you think about it, that happens a lot. Some people who push gender reassignment surgery and hormonal replacement therapy on young people whose brains are still developing and whose hormones are all in a panic until they're age 25. Some of these people who believe that the surgical response, the medical response, is the right answer, well, is it because there's a high incidence of suicide? Well, you know who has the highest incidence of suicide? The demographic is middle-aged people. And you know who has the highest rate of suicide? It's men over the age of 75. But getting back to the middle-aged people, 47% of the suicides are middle-aged people. My group, okay? And among women in that category, the highest is white women. What middle-aged white women commit suicide like more than anybody else. And so if you think about some of the struggles with identity and a disconnect between the mind and body for middle-aged women, well, sagging breasts, incontinence, skin that suddenly looks like leather, missing eyelashes, okay? Suddenly your eyelashes disappear. You got several chins. Is there a surgical option for that? No, there's not. Should there be? No, there shouldn't be, because your body's your temple. Okay? Yes, you might have bunions and thick nails, but if your feet are still getting you up the mountain, you gotta love your feet. Now, is there exceptions? Of course there's exceptions. Of course you need a medical solution sometimes, but when it comes to just being trans, when it comes to just identifying as another gender, think twice before you go into the knife, okay? It's not always the answer. Think about Grey's Anatomy. The medical industrial complex, the for-profit motive behind the healthcare industry, produces a culture that, A, is led to believe that they need surgery and drugs for everything, right? I mean, you break a fingernail, you can take a drug. You watch a show, you're a little sad, you could probably get a prescription, take the day off. We're the vegans of trans. We're the natural trans, okay? Our body is our temple. And I tap into my low T. If I'm feeling a little low T, okay, I get in a fight with somebody. Litigation is good. Mow the lawn. All I'm saying is that if you have gender dysphoria, if there's a disconnect between your mind and your body, you're not alone. There's a disconnect between the mind and body of everyone who's over the age of 50. And the medical establishment wants you to believe, while you're on your parents' insurance, that surgery, drugs are the answer, but maybe they're not the answer. Maybe the surgery should be used in the criminal justice system, okay? You know what a penectomy is? There's all kinds of surgery that could be applied across the board to society that is not just about trans people. For instance, a penectomy. If you think about all the sexual predators in the Kirk Minihane podcast, okay, preying on young, vulnerable women, repeatedly abusing their power to get sex, their insurance should cover penectomy. And what about phalloplasty? Okay, phalloplasty. Why just trans get phalloplasty? Why not just the man who's 75 who wants to call it a day? Because there's a disconnect between the man in the mirror and the man in his imagination. All I'm saying is that you can be a vegan and you can be someone who rejects surgery and drugs as a solution to mind and body cohesiveness and health. You can be trans without surgery. You can be trans without drugs. That's what you have heard here on the Smugsy Show. You can be trans without the medical establishment hitting you up for some kind of surgery you don't need. It's no different than these peddlers, okay? These snake oil salesmen who circle my neighborhoods and tell me that they could do this to my waistline or that to my bust. I could get new skin. I could tack up my eyelashes. I say no thanks. Instead, I'm going to eat a Mediterranean diet. I'm going to do the show. I'm going to laugh with my friends, take care of my family. I'm going to be like a vegan, but not as obnoxious. And I encourage you to be natural too. Your body's your temple. And that's here on the Smugsy Show. You heard it here first. And until next time, this is Smugsy signing off. Take care.